allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Now call the roll. Commissioner President Wyatt.
Present.
Commissioner Vice President Webb. Commissioner Vice President Webb. Commissioner Andrews. Commissioner Andrews. Commissioner Gray. Commissioner Dr. Harris.
Present.
Commissioner Hembry. Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner Malone.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Also present with us this evening, we have Mr. Rashawn K. Hassan, Superintendent, Mr. Cameron E. Cox, Chief Financial Officer, Board Secretary, Dr. Elizabeth Philippatos, Chief of Staff, Chief Carletta Jones, Chief of Human Resources, Chief Vashawn L. Hill, Chief of Marketing and Communications, Dr. Danielle Mastro Giovanni, Chief of Equity and School Improvement, Mrs. Khalifa Shabazz, General Counsel, Mr. Jeffrey A. Morton, Assistant Business Administrator, and Ms. Kaylin Marsola, Student Commissioner. Welcome to the business meeting of the Plainfield Board of Education. Members hope that you will find this meeting interesting and informative. We thank you for taking the time out to attend. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the media and public, consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided to the Courier News and Tap into Plainfield on Monday, September 15th, 2025, to be advertised on Friday, September 19th, 2025, and also provided to the Plainfield Public Schools District website, the Plainfield City Clerk, Police Department, and Plainfield Public Libraries for posting. Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Welcome, and thank you for being here at our September business meeting. We are excited to start this new school year. We're glad to have you here with us. Welcome to those of you attending with us virtually. We're glad to have you here in attendance and those here present in person. It's excited to have our students back in school. I hope you're all just excited as I am. This school year will bring more forward movement, growth, and a renewed commitment to excellence. Over the summer, we had many students attend our 21st Century Summer Program. Now, I've shared this with a few staff members who were present, but this is the first time that I will be able to share it publicly since this is our first official board meeting of the school year. The end of the summer exhibit was the best of yet since all of the years that I've been able to attend these end of the summer. Yes, please clap. And all of the years that I was able to attend the end of the summer showcase and exhibit, I was amazed by the talent, intelligence, and creativity of our young scholars. Having them all back now is very exciting, and I look forward to seeing their limitless potential unfold throughout the year. During Labor Day weekend, our board hosted a retreat that was both inspiring and grounding. I am deeply appreciative of the commissioners who dedicated their valuable time to our collective professional development. I am proud of the outcomes of the retreat, which reaffirmed our commitment to effective governance, purposeful collaboration, stronger communication, and building relationships rooted in trust and respect. Most importantly, it reminded us to remain centered in our why, the reason we do this work, as we continue to serve our students and our community. Our administration also held a meaningful retreat. I had the privilege of engaging with them and sharing a message that I hope motivated and inspired them as they prepared to welcome our students and staff back. They didn't get much of a break this summer, but we are grateful for their unwavering dedication. Convocation was a success, highlighted by a powerful performance from our phenomenal band and words of encouragement that set the tone for the school year. In conversations with many of our staff, it is clear that as a district, we are prepared, committed, and ready to support our scholars, even if summer vacation didn't quite feel long enough. And to our teachers, welcome back. You are the heartbeat of our schools, and your role in guiding students toward growth, discovery, and opportunity is invaluable. Your passion, resilience, and creativity set the foundation for everything our students will achieve this year. Our board recently returned from the 2025 CUBE Annual Conference, a powerful gathering of school board members and educational leaders from across the nation. We were accompanied by the superintendent and a few of our administrators. This convening, focused on strategies to meet the evolving challenges of urban education, was a phenomenal conference as always. I am proud to share that Plainfield contributed in a meaningful way yet again. Superintendent Hassan and I presented our breakout session, Strengthening Schools Through Strategic Partnerships a community-centered approach. Our session drew a full audience and was met with overwhelmingly positive feedback, with many attendees calling it not only a highlight in the conference, but the best session of the entire conference. We showcased how Plainfield is moving forward by leveraging partnerships that are student and community-centered, with the goal of cultivating the whole child and preparing our students to grow, thrive, and lead, not just inside, but outside of the classroom as well. Now, the challenge is ensuring that excellence resonates here at home. While criticism may sometimes focus on what we are perceived not to be doing, the truth is that Plainfield is ahead of the curve in many ways, in our programs, our operations, and our commitment to our students. There's always room to grow, but we must also recognize how far we've come and be proud of the standard we continue to set. Tonight, I want to thank our superintendent and his cabinet, our administrators, teachers, support staff, department staff, our IT department, buildings and grounds, security, nursing staff, and of course, our students and families for allowing us the privilege to serve you. And to my fellow board commissioners, thank you for your dedication and leadership. As always, we do have a highlight video, well, a welcome back video, to share tonight. It captures the energy and excitement of this new school year, from our administrative retreat to these first few weeks of classes. Summer may be behind us, but we are stepping into the fall with great momentum, ready to conquer the year ahead. Here's to an awesome school year, one full of purpose, progress, and in pride. And together, we will continue to move Plainfield Public Schools forward. Nick, you can cue up the video.
Here we go. Lungs in the air.
All right, I'll now entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Motion to go into executive session?
Do we have a second?
Properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Malone that the board now retire into executive
30
session
minutes.
for the purposes of discussing personnel and legal for approximately 30 minutes. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same right? Motion carried. Again, the board anticipates approximately 30 minutes.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
I'd like to entertain a motion to reconvene public session.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Properly moved by Commissioner Gray and seconded by Commissioner Smith. The board now resume this meeting in the public. You heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion carried. Madam President, we just have a few walk-on items that we'd like to read into the record, if you mind, if you don't mind.
Sure, let's go.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
And so the first one is going to be additional names added to one of the agenda items, which will be, if you bear with me 2 seconds, I'm just pulling it up. So under K, Office of Human Resources, we have transfers and reassignments. We will be adding the following names. We'll be reading. Okay. We'll be reading the following names, Madam President. And those names would be Anna Andre, Liliana Bojorquez, thank you. Paula Brown, Rosie Cornell, Foriella Corrales, Celia Martinez Santiago, Guillermo Pina, and Tatiana Pinto, Vanessa Rivera, Juliana Ruiz, and Anissa Suarez. Those 11 names will be added to the bottom of K7 for the transfer list, Madam President. I'm sorry. You had something?
Go ahead. No,
Additionally, as the last item for approval under Human Resources will be the addition of the professional development plan. That professional development plan will be listed on the agenda as K16. It will now be a walk-on item for K16, and that will be the approval of the Human Resources Professional Development Plan for the district. Lastly, under the Office of Business Operations, we have the bank signatures at item 7. So that will be O, Office of Business Operations, number 7. Currently, we have one name. The following names will be added to that resolution for approval. And the names of Jamila Jones at PHS and Yamil Rojas at Evergreen. That will be added to item 7 of the business operations. I'm sorry. And lastly, we also have the addition for facility fee waiver requests for the Plainfield Cardinal Popwater cheerleading team to be able to conduct their fall and winter practices inside.
they're already approved.
So those are the 4 items that I have, Madam President. They'll be reflected shortly on the updated agenda. That should be corrected by the end of the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cox. Okay, and now, Mr. Hassan, you have the floor. Mr. Hassan has a presentation before we get into the board business.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight, my report centers around 2 major items for our school district. The first is the district's compliance to HIB. That section of the presentation will be delivered by Ms. Denise Shipman. And I will close out our presentation with an update on the district's most recent NJSLA and access testing performance.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Happy Tuesday, as Mr. Hassan always says, and happy National Hispanic Heritage Month. President Wyatt, distinguished board commissioners, and Superintendent Hassan, I'm Denise Shipman. If it's bullying behavior, I always say there is an imbalance of power. It may be a repeated negative action is occurring. They blame the target. The student may have intentions of physical harm, and they do not want to solve the issue. So we have several preventions and intervention strategies that we use throughout the district. Our main goal is to stop bullying before it occurs. We want to have zero tolerance for bullying. So some of the strategies that we use, we have a clear anti-bullying policy, and we also use our student code of conduct. We promote our SEL programs with SALIS and our classroom lessons on empathy, respect, and kindness, restorative practice. That's also in partnership with our school management office. We increase supervision in our hotspots, which is the cafeteria, the playgrounds. We have our anti-bullying campaigns, Week of Respect, which starts October the 7th for the month of October. If you did not know, October is the anti-bullying month for prevention. In addition to that, we are targeting over 900 students in our 7th and 8th graders. For October, we are bringing back That's Not Cool play for our Cedarbrook, Hubbard, and Maxon, because we've identified those schools as having some of the highest bullying incidences. And we provide our staff with annual training. Our interventions. For our targeted students, so they say, okay, so a parent may say, well, what happens now? Now that you've identified that it's an HIB, it's a confirmed HIB or non-confirmed. For our targeted students, we ensure confidential reporting. We counsel and provide support services. We develop a safety plan. We engage our families and increase our follow-up. We also have peer support groups and restorative practices, and we monitor their safety to ensure that we don't have any retaliation. For the aggressor, we practice healthy relationship building through our guided conversations. We want our students that just because you've been identified as having this bad behavior, you can recover from that. Counseling and a behavior intervention plan, social skills, supervision and monitoring, parenting conference. We have a tier level of if it's serious, suspension, and other alternative consequences. We have our check-ins, peer mediation, and referrals to community services if needed. For the 24-25 school year, we investigated 61 cases, 38 were confirmed, and 23 were non-confirmed. Our HIB incidents occurred as name-calling, inappropriate touching, cyberbullying, threats and physical acts, insensitivity to diversity, a breakdown of our clusters, 38 for our elementary, K through 8, 31, middle school, 22, high school, 8, and 0 for our outer district. Location of our hotspots, playground, classroom, lunchroom, cafeteria, hallway, home computers, after-school program. Our school self-assessment for this year is a 73. And I think President Wyatt asked this question last year. And most of the time, if you ask a question, I try to write it down so I have the answer for the following school year. But you asked the question, how do we rate with 73? According to the state, 53 to 78 means you met the standard. So anything above a 70, you exceeded the standards for compliance according to the state. So I think that we are in high regard with our ratings for our policies, our compliance, our core elements, as well as our reporting system. As you can see, there are 8 core elements. We are required to have anti-bullying coordinators at each of our schools. As you can see, we are in full compliance. And at this time, I'll take any questions that you may have.
First, I wanted to inform the board that you do have copies of this presentation in the red folder that's in front of you. But do we have any questions from commissioners at this time? on the HIB presentation. Commissioner Gray?
Can you do me a huge favor and go back that one slide that has the self-assessment? Right. Is the
Make sure.
no, it was a self-assessment in order
With
to
the
get
grades.
that
Did you
score.
switch yet already?
With the grades.
70, yeah, with the grades.
Okay.
So it was like 78. Remember you was talking about the scores
Okay, am I
between
going the
50
wrong
to
way?
78.
You're going, yeah, keep going, yeah,
Yeah.
go that way.
Yep,
Okay,
right there. Yep.
Yes, sir.
So what's the methodology for this report?
So the
Like, how do you-
formula
how
that
do you
we
establish
use,
the self-assessment?
each of our schools have to rate themselves. So they give partially met, exceeded the standard, or met the standard. So it's kind of like a three-tier process. So they have 8 core elements that they have to report on. For example, core element 1, do we have a reporting system in place? The second element, did you report any HIVs for this year? Were they conflict or were they confirmed HIVs? So we have certain, and I can share that information with you.
Yeah, you can share the information.
Yeah, I will
'cause
share
I'm just
the
interested in the
elementary.
methodology as it relates to resolution of HIV cases.
Right.
And if that's a part of the state methodology.
Yes, sir, it is. Because the formula that we have to use, each of the highest rating you can get is a 78 on the entire process for your school assessment. So I have to total all the scores for all the 15 schools, and then I have to divide that, and that's how we get the 73 as our number.
Thank you.
But I will share that with you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners?
Yes, perhaps you could just give some insight why the numbers are particularly lower at Pinnacle,
Booker and Maxon.
Maxon.
I think that a lot of the schools want to be honest when they report this. They want to be honest if we need more work in certain areas. We know that we have to do a little bit of extra work at our middle schools because a lot of our middle schools are dealing with the cyberbullying and social media. So a lot of our cases are high in that area. So for Pinnacle, I think they're just being honest in their scores. This is an assessment that's done by the entire team. So it's not just one person doing it. So if one person doesn't agree with the ratings, they try to come to a compromise. But I am working in those areas, especially in our middle schools. We know that Booker had a high number of HIB this year, so I think they needed a lot of support in those areas. So we're working with the social workers with a lot of training, and we're having parent meetings and parent presentations so the parents will understand what the difference is between bullying and conflict with students. Hi.
So, the normal conflict versus bullying, when it's like incidental, not serious, like what constitutes not serious? Is that like a state thing, or are we taking account for how the children feel? Because if someone calls me a name, and someone who was bullied in Plainfield Public Schools, so I know, it's like, if I'm saying that someone called me a name and I'm reporting it to my teacher and they're saying that's not serious, what's the student buy-in on what's a conflict versus bullying?
Well, I prefer the teacher report it, regardless if she thinks it's bullying, or he or she thinks it's bullying or not. I'd rather for you to report it and have the social worker determine that according to the interviews that we do with the students. So, far as you asked the question of
What's the student's voice in that?
always, because most of the time the students are the ones that's reporting. As I mentioned, they have confidential reporting. The only person that can be anonymous in reporting bullying is the student. So if a teacher reports that there's bullying, they are not considered to be able to maintain just being anonymous. I have to put their name in my report. But a student can be anonymous in that, so we can protect their rights.
I just wanted to get clarity on that, because I didn't want it that, like, students were professing that they're experiencing bullying, but then it bounces back like, oh, that was incidental or not serious, because that's their experience.
Can I give
Right.
you an example of that?
Yeah.
So during the course of the investigation, let's say it was reported that a student called another student a name using a racial slur. During the course of the investigation, the student who utilized that racial slur was interviewed, and we learned during the interview that they did not understand what they said. They used that word because they overheard someone say it on a television show they watched, but didn't understand the meaning of it, right? So that speaks to intentionality, and that happens sometimes in instances where students have conflict. Students are hearing things because they have access to things that they shouldn't have at times, whether that's access to YouTube, access to programs on the internet, et cetera. So there have been instances where students have brought certain behaviors but didn't really understand what it was that they were saying or what kind of response that would evoke when they used some terminology or even took a specific action. It's not all the time, but that is an example of something where
I just want to make sure the person on the receiving end, because it takes nothing for someone to say, oh, I didn't mean to say that.
No,
but then you still have
absolutely.
the student on the receiving end who
Yeah.
has to
Yep. And that's why the restorative practices are very important, because even if in that instance that student shares that I overheard someone else say it, I didn't really understand what I was saying, right? You now still have to go through this restorative cycle between those two students, because whether or not you understood the impact of that, you still caused harm and hurt someone, right? And that's really important. So that ownership of it is is a really important part of the process. That truth and reconciliation is what we strive for in those instances.
Thank you for sharing that part. 1 second, just for additional clarity for my own sake and possibly for the rest of the board and the public. With regard to what Commissioner Smith said, I just want to make certain that are all of the staff, teachers, whomever, all staff across the district, are they informed on whether, do they know that they have to report it regardless of what their feeling is? And is that the current practice that we have in place? So the teacher, like she said, the teacher can feel like it might not be that serious based on this accidental versus the non-serious, but do they know that regardless of what their feelings are, they are to report whatever the students are telling them no matter what?
Yes.
And they report that to, what's the chain of command on that? They report that to the principal or the social worker or the guidance counselor? How does that work?
Well, I'll take the approach, whoever you feel like you need to go to, but the protocol is the social worker.
And is there documentation involved with that?
Yes, we have to do a report. And also, we have what we call the parent caregiver report, which is already posted on the website. It's HIB 338, that the parent can report it anonymously to. They can go to our website, fill out the report, and send it directly to the school, or they can send it to me.
Okay, now one more question with that. Does the parent get an incident report? So if I'm a student and I feel like I'm being bullied or somebody says something inappropriate to me, I report it to my teacher. Now my teacher reports it to the appropriate administrator. They document that, but now I go home. Does an incident report go home with me? Is my parent notified? Or does my parent get a phone call or an email stating that your child said that this is what happened to them today? This is how we just following up with you to let you know we're going to investigate this matter.
Right, so 1, 2, 10. So on the first day, the act of the HIB, the act of the incident may occur. Day 2, we have to inform the parents and as well as the administrator. And then at that point, the anti-bullying specialists have 10 days to do the report. They do have what we call predetermination. They can determine if it's a conflict or did we need to push this as a confirmed HIB. Parents are notified if they're in advance that we're doing an investigation by the administrator. And I know sometimes our social workers have reached out to our parents to inform them that we're doing an investigation. At the end of the investigation, they receive a letter of the outcome of the investigation, and that can be confirmed or not confirmed. But we will certainly always take our students through counseling, supportive peer support group, And we do have some administrative actions that are approved by the principal of the building.
Last
that answer your
question, is that time frame? I see you, Commissioner Gray. Is that time frame a state mandated requirement? Because, because my concern therein lies, if I'm a student, or forget that, I'm a parent of students in the district. If my child has an incident that they report and believe it's bullying, and let's say that my child doesn't come home and tell me, so now I'm not aware because I have to, the protocol is that you wait until the next day to let me know. But now my child comes home, they're feeling down, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, I'm trying to talk to my kid, come to find out a day or a week or a month later, when I get a call or when I get a letter stating that there's a case being investigated, I don't know that in real time, so I'm not aware that day. So is it us who make that determination, or is that the state that says the incident occurs today, you inform the parent tomorrow?
That's the state mandate.
Okay.
Yes, that's the state mandate.
Commissioner Gray?
So can you go back to that slide? I love that slide that you have with the scores.
Oh, the score? Okay.
Yeah,
No problem.
go back to that slide.
Okay, make sure.
Because
I'm
I think
on
one
the
of
right way.
my fellow commissioners pointed out Booker, and I just wanted to get to, because as a board member, I think my role here is to address systemic
Okay,
issues
no problem.
that maybe just the state is not basically calculating it correctly. But like Booker, for example, Booker is a self-contained school. So I'm just interested how HIB cases are being looked at a self-contained school if we're a state that practices inclusion, right? And that the Inclusion 2025 project is what I'm thinking of specifically. Then why is it that we're looking harshly at self-contained schools like Booker when in regards to HIB policy?
Well, I'm not sure we're looking harshly at any of the schools. I'm just going by compliance by what the state says.
Okay.
And the state says that they have certain criteria that at any situation, that if a kid that is self-contained or special needs or anything is being harassed or bullied, then we have to protect that child.
So maybe it might be helpful just to get a breakdown of
Oh, I can
different
do that.
categories so I can understand whether or not, for example, Booker, and I'm very sensitive to, for example, especially
We'll follow
needs
up.
population.
We'll
Yeah.
provide that.
Yes, I can make sure that.
Mr. Gray.
Do you want it for would you like to see the entire,
Just a
the
breakdown
entire
from, like,
focus
all
or
of
just
them.
one school?
Like, I think this is amazing work, by the way. Like, I'm glad you all are like focusing on it and it's
Okay.
metric driven like this. This is amazing. I just want to get a better understanding of how like I can play my part as not only just a commissioner, but also as a
Yes, sir.
parent that sends their kid to tuition.
You got it. I can make sure I get you that info.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, if we don't have any more questions by the board, thank you, Ms. Shipman.
Thank you for
Dr.
your
Shipman.
time.
Thank you so much.
It's not even working, it's crazy. That whole thing not plugged in?
Good evening, Board Commissioners, Mrs. Wyatt, Mr. Webb, Board Leadership, members of our community. Good evening. I will, at this time, walk us through the district's NJSLA performance from the spring of 2025. I'd like to start by just stating we, as a school district, and, under the leadership of myself and my administration, we continue to execute our plans to improve student outcomes in our district. We've been very intentional about the initiative that we rolled out in our school district and the supports that we provided across our academic programming. Members of our Academic Excellence and Instruction and Programs Committee had the opportunity to meet Dr. Tina Powell in a recent committee meeting. She provided an in-depth presentation to highlight a number of the initiatives that we've rolled out. I will bring Dr. Powell back to provide a similar presentation for the larger community. For those board members who are not part of that committee meeting, in the last weekly briefing that I shared on Friday, a summary of the notes and supporting information was provided in case you wanted to go back and take a look at that in-depth presentation. Oh, NJSLA stands for New Jersey Student Learning Assessments. The purpose of NJSLA is to provide statewide assessments that measure students' progress towards the New Jersey Student Learning Standards in ELA, which stands for English Language Arts, Mathematics, and Science. The format is primarily computer-based. Paper is also available as an accommodation for students who meet that need. ELA focuses on close reading, synthesizing across text, vocabulary and context, effective writing with sources, and math focuses on multi-step problem solving, abstract reasoning, real-world modeling, precision, perseverance, and strategic tool use. While science focuses on earth and space, life and physical sciences, with a focus on applying concepts and practices. The question types range from selected responses, constructed response, and technology-enhanced items. It should be noted that there is a major change to the NJSLA assessment, which will take place during the 25-26 school year. The Department of Education here in the state of New Jersey announced that we will be moving towards an adaptive learning assessment for our students. Same standards, same level of rigor. However, the test will be adaptive, meaning that experience will be personalized for our students. So for any of our parents who are listening, if you ever use a tool such as Khan Academy, ABC Mouse, which is one of my favorites, those tools actually adjust to the progress and the performance of the students. So our tests will in fact adapt to the way our students respond to questions. And if a student is knocking it out of the park, they'll continue to ramp up the rigor of those questions. However, if a student is missing the mark, the rigor of those questions might be shifted to meet the student where they are, so that that student can have a more personalized experience. We are gearing up for the fall field testing cycle. All school districts in the state of New Jersey are required to participate in field testing. We are excited, to participate, to get a crack at it, see what that test experience is like for our students, and we'll continue to provide updates to the board. So looking at the district's performance over the course of 5 years, we have the following proficiency rates across our district going back to the 2021 school year, in which the Start Strong test was administered. In the content area of ELA, we've seen our performance increase from 22% to 24%. And in the area of math, we've improved our proficiency rates from 5% to 17%. What will be shown is that we've had consistent growth in the area of math over the course of the last 5 years. And these results, although they are not where we want to be as a school district, they are in fact the highest percentages as it relates to district proficiency that we've seen over a 5-year period. Here's a different look at our proficiency rates over the course of the last 5 years in the area of ELA. You can see in grade 3, we did not have results in 2021. However, in the 2022 school year, the proficiency rate was 16% for grade 3. We're now proud to say that we've increased those proficiency rates to 23.2% across grade 3. Across grade 4, we've seen that proficiency rate increase from 10% to 22%. Across grade 5, increased from 21% to 25.8%. Across grade 6, going from 15% to 26.1%. And across grade 7, 23% to 24.8%. And across grade 8, 20% to 23.8%. Highlighting specifically grade 9, we've shown decreases in our proficiency rates for students in grade 9. And that suggests and tells us that as a school community, We have to implement serious bridge programs to ensure that our students are able to hit the ground running when they exit middle school and arrive in our high school space. Our 5-year comparison of our NJSLA ELA proficiency highlights the following. Across grade 3, proficiency shows an upward trend, and we believe this is helping us set a strong foundation for continued growth. We also believe that the results that we are seeing in grade 3 is a direct result of our intentionality to focus on early childhood education. We've implemented a number of initiatives across our pre-K space over the last few years, some of which were seen to be very controversial for some. We continue to be a school district that is innovative, proactive, and we're going to seek every opportunity that's available to us to help enhance our student performance and their outcome. So in the pre-K space, we were one of the first school districts to raise our hand and say, you know what, Department of Education, allow us to pilot the new curriculum that you've made available across the state of New Jersey. While others waited, we stepped out there and boldly took that opportunity. We were also one of the first school districts to re-examine our commitment to phonics in that early childhood space, and we've implemented great tools such as foundations to help support us. Across grade 4, our ELA proficiency has increased, demonstrating significant progress in our core literacy skills. And in grade 5, with the 26% proficiency, the highest amongst our tested grades, our students in grade 5 continue to set the pace for upper elementary literacy achievement. We also show positive trajectory across our elementary grades. Every grade level from grades 3 through 5 has shown improvement, underscoring the district's progress in building stronger ELA outcomes across the elementary level. And while we're focusing on ELA as a specific content, we would not show the gains and the improvement that we've been able to show without the cross-collaboration and our cross-functional efforts to ensure that we're uplifting ELA and other content areas such as social studies and science. Our 5-year comparison, again, of NJSLA ELA proficiency amongst our secondary schools show the following. Our students in 6th grade, their proficiency rose to 26% over the course of 5 years, the highest level for this grade across those years, reflecting a strong early middle school literacy growth. As it relates to our students in 7th grade, those students are holding steady, have been holding steady for several years. Proficiency has improved in 2025, signaling a renewed upward momentum in this grade span. Students in grade 8 rebounded to 24% in 2025, showing progress at this key transition to high school. And our students in 9th grade, as I stated before, their proficiency has dropped. Right now, sad to say that we're at the lowest point in 5 years, underscoring the need for more targeted supports as students enter high school. It should also be noted that this grade 9 is also one of the major entry points for new students coming into our school district. And as a school district that has more than 40% of our student population being categorized as multilingual learners, a significant portion of 9th grade students are entering our school district as newcomers, some being introduced to the English language for the first time. Overall, our secondary trends show that across grades 6 through 8, we have positive gains into the mid 20% range, while 9th grade results highlight a critical area for interventions. Here's our 3-year comparison showing the district versus the state of New Jersey. And you can see as we've made our incremental progress, I'm happy to say that as we've looked at our progress in comparison to the state over the last 2 school years, it shows that our incremental growth is actually outpacing the state's growth in some instances, which means that over time and with consistency and a continued investment, we will soon be at a point where we'll be more comparable to what we see across the state of New Jersey. And I want to remind us all that these things, they do not happen overnight. You think about the foundational changes and investments that we've been making over the course of the last few years, some districts don't start to experience the change in the growth that we've seen consistently across grade spans until year 7 of a major turnaround of any school district. Now, shifting to our ELA subgroup data, our economically disadvantaged students, their proficiency rose closely, mirroring the progress of our general education students. Our students with disabilities showed proficiency growth, but outcomes still remain far below the ESSA target. Now, this highlights persistent gaps in the need for specialized supports and access to grade-level instruction. As it relates to our multilingual learners, proficiency increased slightly, but still remains far from the ESSA target. This subgroup continues to be among the lowest performing, underscoring the urgency of expanding bilingual and ESL services and scaffolding supports. As the board is aware, we did seek approval from the Department of Education for a waiver for our bilingual program, and as a result, we're implementing bilingual resource support in the form of push-in support for mathematics. We're also providing high-intensity ESL services to our students, along with our newcomer academy. This past summer was the first time that an extended school year program was offered specifically for multilingual learners. We will continue to provide that as a summer initiative, along with extended day opportunities for students to take advantage of at the end of their school day and also during Saturdays. Now, what are the system-wide implications? All of our subgroups have shown incremental growth between the 24 and 25 school years, but none have met or exceeded the ESSA proficiency targets. And students with disabilities and multilingual learners, they remain the furthest behind, requiring intensified interventions, which I will speak more about in later slides. Now, what are our implications for our ELA instruction? Across grades 3 to 5, we are adding additional supports for our students with the addition of foundations, which I mentioned earlier in Hegarty. These are supplements to our elementary literacy curriculum, and they will be utilized to help our students gain those additional foundational skills. Across our middle schools, recent gains in grades 6 and 7 demonstrate that literacy supports in middle school are beginning to close our gaps. And we have to continue to be innovative, leverage strategic partnerships. We will continue to roll out our programs such as the Mystery Reader Tour that we started during the last school year. And as we move on to high school, again, highlighting where our concerns are, without strength and interventions, students risk entering high school without the literacy skills that are necessary for their advanced coursework and graduation readiness. This is very important for us. Overall, multilingual students account for a large percentage of our overall district proficiency, and we've known that if we are able to help support our multilingual learners, who, in my opinion, are no longer a subgroup in our school district, they're almost 50% of our overall student population. That student population has to be supported and has to make the gains necessary in order for us as a school district to achieve our targets. Now, here's a comparison over the last 5 years of our NJSLA math proficiency across all of our grade levels. You'll see that there's been, again, continued growth. In those middle years, we seem to be a little stagnant. However, we again show our greatest gains across each of these grade spans. Our greatest levels of proficiency have been realized in our NJSLA results from the spring of 2025. We think about our 5-year comparison, looking at the performance of our students in grade 3. Their proficiency climbed to the highest level in the past 5 years, showing strong gains in early numeracy and problem solving. In grades 4, after lagging in earlier years, with proficiencies being as low as 9%, our 4th grade students more than doubled their proficiency rates from the lowest point, reflecting meaningful progress. In grade 5, proficiency increased from earlier years, indicating consistent improvement. Overall, in elementary math growth, by 2025, all 3 grade levels demonstrated gains. However, proficiency declines as the grade levels go up, which underscores the need for targeted small group instruction and interventions at the upper elementary levels to sustain growth and, in fact, prepare our students for their transition into middle and high schools. And our expectation is that as students grow and they shift and they move on with their cohorts, we expect our students to retain the growth that they made in prior school years. That also means that we have to have intentionality with our professional development plans, which is on the agenda tonight for the board's review, and not necessarily approval, but for your review so that you all understand the professional development plan that we are rolling out across the district. Shifting to our secondary schools, 6th grade proficiency levels increased to 14% in 2025, up from single-digit levels in prior years. In grade 7, after holding steady in earlier years, proficiency rose in 2024 and 25, marking the strongest performance at this grade span in the past 5 years. Across grade 8, proficiency improved to 10% in 2025, after showing previous dips, which were as low as 4%, signaling our renewed progress for our students at this grade level. Algebra 1, which is a combination of students in both grades 8 and 9, we did show slippage there, down to 10%, signaling that our students continue to struggle in this critical gateway course, and that this is in fact an area in which we need targeted interventions. Geometry proficiency jumped to 17%, marking the strongest performance across all secondary math measures. Here's our state comparison over the course of the last school years, going back to 2023. Now, taking a look at our NJSLA math subgroup data, our students who are classified as economically disadvantaged, their proficiency rose closely, tracking the progress of our general education students. Students with disabilities improved, but they also still remain well below the ESSA target and our expectations. And our multilingual learners, they grew from 8% in 2024 to 13% in 2025, showing one of the largest year-over-year increases amongst our subgroups. However, still shy of the target, it does in fact signal the need for stronger math language supports and sheltered instruction in all of our content areas. System-wide implications. While all subgroups grew in math proficiency, none of our subgroups met their ESSA targets, but the greatest relative progress came from our multilingual learners, while the largest gaps remain for our students with disabilities. Our implications for our math. Across elementary school, gains of proficiency highlight that foundational math skills are in fact strengthening. We have to make a concerted effort to continue to invest in high-quality programs and additional supports for students. Across middle school, proficiency rates improved modestly, but they remain in the low to mid-teens, and persistent gaps must be addressed through stronger interventions and cross-grade support in fractions, algebra readiness, and mathematical reasoning. Our high school gateway courses for Algebra 1 and Geometry, they remain below the state performance, signaling that students are not entering advanced math courses on par with their peers statewide. And this suggests that targeted supports for the transition from middle school to Algebra 1 remains a challenge. Overall, multilingual learners again account for 40+% of our overall district proficiency. They will no longer be a subgroup 3 years from now. Our multilingual learners will in fact be the majority of our student population. So what I'm saying to us all here today is that our solution to improving our student outcomes and seeing that exponential growth we're looking for, it truly lies in our ability to uplift our population of multilingual learners here in our school community, and also our students with disabilities. Again, another look at our ESSA targets. Now we'll get into the NJSLA ESSA targets at the school level. This is a snapshot of the performance for each of our elementary schools as it relates to their proficiency in comparison to the school's ESSA targets. You can see here in this presentation or this slide that 60% of our elementary schools met or exceeded the ESSA targets in the 24-25 school year. The outliers being Booker, Cedarbrook, Evergreen, and Washington. Highlighting our secondary schools, out of the 4 schools that had test results, 25% of those schools met or exceeded the targets, and that one school listed being Plainfield High School. While we have a solid proficiency rate from PAS, it is, again, higher than all of the other secondary schools. It is still below the school's ESSA target that was slated for the 24-25 school year. Moving on to math, looking across our elementary schools, 40% of our elementary schools met or exceeded the ESSA target for mathematics in the 24-25 school year. And moving on to our secondary schools, 25% of those schools with test results surpassed, exceeded, or met the ESSA targets for math. And that school is Hubbard. Moving on to our NJ, you want to pause here, Mrs. White, and take questions, or keep going through all the sections?
You can keep going and we can
Okay.
ask questions.
So, as it relates to our NJ GPA spring 2025, one item that I really want to note for us, for our students who were tested in grade 9, they will not receive another standardized state assessment until they sit for the NJ GPA. It's very important that we monitor and track the progress of those students as they move on to their junior year. Outside of the interim assessments that we provide as a school district, there is nothing at the state level that will determine whether or not those students are in fact ready or prepared for graduation. So we're talking about a 2-year window that's very critical for us. Grade 9, they'll get another assessment in grade 11. So our NJ GPA is a statewide assessment that determines grade 11 students' proficiency in ELA and math as a part of the state graduation requirement. It has a similar format to NJ SLA, primarily computer-based. Paper is again available as an accommodation, and it focuses on the same areas or standards and concepts as NJ SLA. Now, I will state that the NJ GPA, although it is utilized to monitor students' proficiency and determine their readiness for graduation, it is not the end-all be-all. Students ultimately have other pathways that help them to become eligible for graduation. Across our organization, we showed that in the 2024 school year, we had 272 students graduation ready in ELA. We increased that number by 2 students in the 2025 school year to 274. And in math, we had 100 students who were graduation ready in 2024, and in 2025, that increased to 122. Our graduation ready rates are 51.5% in ELA and 21.6% in math. You can see the comparison that we have between the state. I want to, again, just state here for the board and for the community members who are listening, a student's performance on the NJ GPA or any other test, it is not the ultimate indication of a student's ability to be successful. While I know state testing is a huge requirement for us, it does not tell the complete story of a student's progress and their ability to go out here and take their rightful place as the leaders in the community, in the state, and in this country. So for us, we continue to increase our graduation rates, and we provide alternative options for our students through portfolios, courses that we provide to them, et cetera. So as we look across our ELA school level comparisons, you can see the results here for each of our schools. Plainfield High School showed an increase of 1% on the ELA component, and PAS showed a decrease of 2%, and Pinnacle Academy showed a decrease of 11%. We also know that students who attend Pinnacle Academy, they're often enrolled in the school because they may have experienced some challenges and need a different environment. So again, our goal is to prepare our students to get them across the finish line, and we're going to use every option available to us to help our students do that. Our comparison for our subgroup data shows that our students who are economically advantaged, that their proficiency rose on the assessment. We also showed that proficiency grew for our students with disabilities, and also showed slight improvements for our multilingual learners. While all subgroups show growth, we want to ensure that we get them to actually meet that ESSA target. And students with disabilities and multilingual learners are the students that we need to provide that additional targeted support for. Looking at math across the board, we did show improvements in the students' performance on math in these particular state assessments for graduation readiness, increasing from 16 to 17% at PHS, 40% to 57% at PAWS. We did not have any students participate from Pinnacle Academy. No students in that grade level. This slide again shows our comparison of our NJGPA for our math subgroup data. Economically disadvantaged students, their proficiency showed modest growth. Students with disabilities, their proficiency has more than doubled between the 24 and 25 assessment. Multilingual learners, proficiency declined slightly, again, highlighting the need to provide targeted supports and interventions for this group of students. And our system-wide implications shows that incremental gains in some areas are offset by continued low performance overall with our student subgroups. And the story that I'm highlighting today is that we have to have an equity focus. That is extremely important. We've run the data, we've looked at our student performance across our general education settings and showed the comparison for our students in our subgroups. And the results, the data doesn't lie. With making that conscious effort and uplifting those student groups, our overall proficiency rates will see double-digit increases above and beyond what we've already shown. And again, we can no longer look at our multilingual learners as this subgroup or this small population in our school district, because they're almost to the point where they account for 1 out of every 2 students in our school community. Now, shifting to our access results, Access 2.0 for 2025. The purpose of our access testing is to measure the English language proficiency for all of our multilingual learners in grades K to 12. It is primarily a computer-based assessment. Paper is available as an accommodation. Students in grades K to 12 are screened using a WIDA model tool, and it identifies multilingual learners. The WIDA access is given to all multilingual learners from early February through April 11th. The question types are selected response, structured response, and performance-based tasks measuring listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The WIDA access levels range from 1 through 5. 1 is considered entering, 2 beginning, 3 is a developing, 4 is an expanding, and 5 is a bridging. And our exit score has to be a 4.5. So for any student that's receiving bilingual services, say multilingual services from our school district, we have to help that student hit that 4.5 mark so that they can be placed into our general education programming. Now, I will tell you, our data shows us that we have some students who are in our bilingual programs more than 5 years and haven't exited the program. Now, we also know from our rounding conversations with some students that they've shared with us that in some instances, they know that passing the access test means that they will no longer be in that environment where they are only with those who speak their native language. And some students have told us that they intentionally sabotage and fail the test. All right, that's something that we have to deal with and we have to support our students with. But I think on a grand scale, as we've taken a deep look at our bilingual programs in our school district, one unintended consequence has been a segregated school community. I think that there are some board members who have attested to their personal experience in prior years. So when we talk about being a more inclusive school community, it's not just about like the label that we place outside of a classroom door, or what we title a particular training or initiative. It's really about taking a close look at all of our academic programs and making sure that we are not unintentionally creating circumstances where, let's say, it becomes advantageous for me to raise my hand and say, you know what, I want to stay in this segregated environment. That doesn't allow us to grow as a school community, and it doesn't help us set our students up for success. Now on this slide, you will see that going across from 2021 to our 2025 testing cycle, that our students who were rated entering, that is highlighted in on the blue bar graph, we've seen a decrease, and we've actually shown our largest decrease from the 24 to 25 school year of students who are actually in that range. If we go back to the 2022 school year, almost 50% of our multilingual learners were at that entering level, which is basic proficiency, maybe newcomers being introduced to the English language for the first time. That number has decreased to roughly 30%, and we've also now shown an increase from 24 to 25 in the number of students who are in the developing category, and we've also shown an increase of our students who are in who are also in the expanding category. In that expanding category, the student will exit when they're between that 4 and a 5, in between expanding and bridging. So the fact that we've seen that number increase shows that students are in fact making that progress, but we need to see exponential growth in that area. As we interpret our scores, we know that fewer students remain at the entering emerging level across all grade clusters in 2025. More students are advancing into developing and expanding, showing consistent upward movement. In the early grades, K to 3, we're showing fewer students at the emerging level, and this is likely linked to our early childhood programming shift that emphasized English language development. High school gains, they really stood out. Entering level that dropped from 55% in 2023 to 38% in 2025, while our expanding category nearly doubled from 18% to 28%, showing a 10% gain in that time frame. Our proficiency trends across K to 5 shows that in kindergarten, we began with very high percentages at the entering level. We know that's also expected as students may be entering our school district for the first time. Students may be coming to us as newcomers, not having an experience in our pre-K programming. However, by grades 1 to 3, the entering declines sharply while emerging and developing has risen, reflecting steady language gains for our students across those grade spans. In grades 4 to 5, we show that more students are in fact moving into expanding, up to 35%, and even some into the bridging, showing their readiness to exit. The students who enter early and receive ML and ESL supports follow the expected English language trajectory, typically reaching exit readiness level, which is 4.5 or higher within 5 to 7 years. We believe that our students need to get to that level a lot sooner. And our K-5 alternative bilingual resource program, it actually aims to help us expedite this rate of growth for our students. In grades 6 through 8, most students are at the developing stage with a strong presence in emerging for grade 6. We have fewer students who are at the lowest entering and the higher expanding stages. Our largest group remains developing across grade 7, but there is also a noticeable share of students still at the entering and emerging levels. Across grade 8, more students are in the entering stage, surpassing other groups, while developing declines and emerging and expanding, they remain relatively steady. Overall, our students in our upper grades, they are in fact more concentrated at the lower levels, pointing to challenges for late arriving multilingual learners. And I spoke to this point earlier. Having multiple entry points for students. If a student enters our school district as a multilingual learner in grade 8, and they are considered to be a SIFE student, which stands for Students with Interrupted Formal Education, because they were at home for 2 years before they moved to the United States of America, that is a big gap that has to be closed. And those students require more time that helps them acquire the English language, which is why we sought the approval from the Department of Education to allow us to be more aggressive in that regards. Students in grades 9 and 10, entering it dominates at the secondary level, especially across grades 11 and 12, with nearly half of the students, they're still at level 1. Again, our high school is another entry point, and if a student comes to us and they show up and they're 16 years old or 17, and they show up at our doorstep, never spoken a lick of English in my life, we are legally required to provide those students with a thorough and efficient education. We will never turn the student away. However, that does come with significant challenges that are experienced at times. Expanding and bridging percentages, they are very small, and many students, they don't reach exit proficiency before graduation, which is something that we want. However, if a student is coming to us as a SIFE student and they reach us at grade 11, there's no way that we will be able to likely graduate that student before they exit the bilingual program. Now, this reflects some of the challenges of students who arrive late in their schooling years with limited English exposure. But this is something that we have to continue to chip away at, but also keeping in mind that multilingual learners, again, they're no longer this small subgroup that were here in the school district 10 years ago. They are becoming an overwhelming majority of our school community, and we have to be innovative in solving this problem or challenge. So these are the proficiency scores, again, just trends showing a 5-year comparison with our typical growth, showing our key transitions. Kindergarten to grade 1 and middle school entry are critical moments where we also start to see some big shifts in our proficiency levels. In this last graph, it shows us here the number of students who exited our multilingual program in the 24-25 school year. So 240 students, roughly 5.5% of our population of multilingual learners were actually able to exit our program in the 24-25 school year. As we expand our ESL support for our multilingual learners, these are all of the supports that a student can receive during the course of a school day and during the school year. We have sheltered instruction, which supports language, and it's embedded across all content areas. So a multilingual learner will have access to rigorous instruction alongside their peers, and they don't have to be segregated and placed into a different environment. One thing that we know for sure is that our students, they learn from one another. Language acquisition, by being placed in classrooms or environments where students speak another language, the students work together and they will help each other with the language acquisition. So contrary to what we've done in prior years, by placing a population of students in one particular space or environment, it does not help. It causes us more harm in the long run. We have our daily ESL push-in, so students will receive one period of ESL during ELA or social studies, right, and that's for all multilingual learners, and that's provided within the general classroom setting. We have our WIN period supports, and WIN stands for what I need. So our Tier A students, they will receive high-intensity ESL during that time. So if I'm a Tier A student, maybe someone who's a newcomer, during the course of my school day, I will actually have the opportunity to take 2 periods of ESL across the school district or elementary school level in particular. Our expanded learning opportunities, after-school bilingual resource services, and Saturday Newcomers Academy for our recent arrivals. We will also continue to provide our end-of-school year program specifically for our students. And we also provide ESL classes for our newcomer families that's offered as a component to our Newcomers Academy. So as students grow, there were also some concerns that were raised by members of our school community about what happens to the students as it relates to their development, further development of the home language. What language do they speak at home? So if I'm a student and my parent enrolls me, on my home language survey, I say the primary language that's spoken at home is Spanish. A student gets placed into our multilingual program, we are required to also provide and offer those services to the family. Why? We can't have students growing in this direction and their parents moving in that direction. So as the English language proficiency grows and it continues to be developed in the student, we offer the classes for their parents so that they can also develop those skills and acquire the English language. And none of this is to rob our students of their culture. All of our students are valued. It doesn't matter if you're a student who speaks Spanish, you're coming from Guatemala, El Salvador, Ecuador, or if you're a student who speaks Arabic and you came to us from Egypt, or if you're a student who speaks Polish. At the end of the day, we want our students and every member of our community to show up being who they are. But we also have this, this battle to ensure that our students are able to develop proficiently in the English language so that we can prepare them for the future. I think it's very difficult for any of us to want to push our students on to the next level when they haven't acquired that English language, knowing that that is a basic requirement for entry into most job fields, etc. So we know that we have work to do, and again, we're proud to have received the support from the Department of Education with our bilingual resource program. Now, moving on to our special education audit and update. We did share with the board that we weren't asked to conduct a special education audit. However, we thought it was prudent for us to engage in an audit with an outside agency that the board approved during last school year. That agency came in and did a random sampling, I believe, of 80 IEPs for students in our school district. And we have received information and findings from that report. We are aggressively moving forward to make the appropriate changes. The first is creating and implementing smart IEPs. And what does that mean? Developing IEPs that have SMART goals for our students, right? Goals that are SMART, are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Now the challenge, our era as a school district has simply been this. In developing IEPs for students, they have been standards-based. And that is not the appropriate framework that we should be using when developing an IEP for a student. We should be developing goals in students' IEPs that specifically speak to the skills that the students need to develop. Now, if we think about that and put ourselves into the shoes of a parent, if I've developed an IEP that lists student learning standards as opposed to skills or competencies, most parents are not educators, don't work in school districts, probably have no idea, and I'm not saying this in an offensive way, but they probably couldn't unpack a New Jersey student learning standard, right? Because they haven't been trained on that. So imagine that parent showing up and having a conversation with the child study team. They're talking about the progress of their student, and the teacher is referencing learning standards. But the parent is looking for a comprehensive understanding of skills and competencies that they can see being developed in their child, right? Am I seeing this from my child when my child is at home? Maybe one of those skills or competencies was improving the student's independence, as an example. Am I seeing my child show up like this when they're home? That makes for a much better conversation between our school community and our parents, who have to be partners in the work. We've also making a conscious effort with targeted professional development on identified areas and going deeper on our data conversations for improved connections. School districts are very complex organizations. While there are various departments, divisions, offices, etc., I can't think of one office or division that could make a change for our school district and not impact another area of the organization. So as I take a step back and I think about our work over the last few years, and I question, well, how many times have we stood before the board and gave presentations about student performance and data, and that conversation was a silo conversation that came from the Office of Instruction and Programs, but didn't include student services, who's responsible for developing IEPs, making sure that these that we are complying with those IEPs and that there's student growth and progress. So when we talk about the targeted professional development, a special education teacher has to not only be armed with the tools to support the students in their classroom as it relates to their disabilities, they also need to be proficient in delivering high quality instruction across the core content areas as well. What I'm saying to the board and to our community is that they can't be the afterthought when we're bringing together our professionals to have conversations about academic programming and other components in our organization. They have to have a seat at the table from the beginning of the processes. When we're talking about bringing on a new curriculum, our team members who work in special services, they have to be consulted on that curriculum adoption before anybody moves forward with that, because they have a stake in that just as much as anybody else does. Right. So creating and implementing our SMART IEP goals, we're going to start with developing a SMART IEP goals. The training has already is underway. We're going to align the goals with services to ensure that there's clear ownership, right? So as we talk about the goals that are established, now we need to know what service is going to be provided to this student to help them meet this goal or this target. We're going to convert our IEP goals into daily lesson objectives, which will be housed in Genesis, which is our student information system. We'll identify 3 skills gaps and 2 strengths, right, in the IEP plans. We will utilize shared Teams channels for auto-link templates to embed instructional strategies. That ensures greater communication across our various team members and our divisions. We'll also have our regular spot checks on our lessons for compliance and quality, utilizing the Microsoft Team form submission by our teachers. And we're going to do our best to protect our student privacy and maintain educator final approval. Now, implementation, we've already moved forward in September, piloting these initiatives in grades 3 to 7 in math. We also have 2 of our special education teams who are using the SMART goals and the templates that have been created. So we're going to, again, map each goal to lessons embedded into learning targets. So we have our student learning objective, gradual release, activities for our students, identify groups and stations, strategies, likely misconceptions in our lesson plans, an assessment of learning, formative checks, and reflections. This proposal also aligns with our initiative to be innovative with our lesson planning across grades 3 to 7. So for those committee members who were able to participate in the last meeting, I'm proud to share that we received a grant from the Department of Education to the tune of $130,000. We utilized the grants to help us lessen the burden for our teachers. And what does that look like? The final output has been the development and creation of standardized lesson plans for all teachers in grades 3 to 7 for math and ELA. So we're piloting this initiative for the course of the 25-22 school year so that we can receive our data, get the feedback, and then hopefully move forward with the rest of the grades starting next school year. Very important that teachers have the ability to modify the lesson plan specifically for differentiation to make sure they're supporting all of their learners in their classrooms equitably. We have resources that are embedded into each lesson plan, whether it's videos, recommendations for tools that should be pulled into each of those lesson plans. And in addition to that, we're running in parallel our approved AI tool, Magic School AI. Last school year, We rolled out our AI task force. Our task force vetted a number of AI tools. At this point, we have approved one tool for use in the organization, and that is Magic School AI. So for those teachers who don't have the pre-developed lesson plans in grades 3 to 7, they will in fact have access to Magic School AI, which is a tool that they will be able to utilize to help them develop lesson plans, utilizing specific prompts, such as, please provide me, develop a lesson plan that supports my students with this particular learning standard. I also have 3 students in my classroom who have these specific disabilities and have goals that are centered around developing these specific skills or competencies. Please ensure that the lesson plan includes differentiated learning activities for these students during the lesson. So we want to be very intentional about our use of technology. It is not to take away the creativity of our teachers, but that is to ensure that, one, we are lightening the burden, but ensuring that we're providing our teachers with more time on task so that they can focus on the more value-added activities, which is identifying possible misconceptions for their students. So as we move forward through October, again, we will expand this to ELA, and we'll have the initiation of our first calibration cycle. That's very important for us to have those cycles in place so that we can understand what's working, what's not working, quickly make those adjustments. In November, we'll have the inclusion of related services, and another mid-cycle audit will be conducted. Again, we will make adjustments as necessary, and by December, we'll have the district-wide adoption for initial and annual IEPs across the organization. That ends the presentation. I will have, can now take any questions regarding the presentation. And I have one other point that I do want to make on our overall performance. Last school year, we conducted 2 interim assessments. Last school year, we conducted 2 interim assessments for ELA and math across all tested grade levels, starting at grade 3. We showed tremendous growth during the course of the school year, and we used that as a predictor to determine how well our students would fare on our NJSLA results. The vast majority of students across the district and schools had actually shown proficiency on those interim assessments that were 40–45% range. So we do recognize that there's a gap between what we saw in the interim assessments and what we saw when our students showed up and performed on the NJSLA. We are very clear about what that gap has been. There was no interim 3 assessment, which was an error on our part. By not having that 3rd interim assessment as we approach the NJSLA testing cycle, we robbed ourselves of the opportunity to assess and reassess some of the critical areas that students were tested on when they hit that spring assessment. Last school year, we made a lot of changes, being very intentional, and we also struggled as a school district and school community with figuring out whether or not we were over-testing our students. And as a result, we didn't do that final interim assessment. I think it would have helped us a great deal. But we got some great data that is going to help us front-load our programs and initiatives in the 25-26 school year. Now, we know for sure that one of the more critical areas, particularly math, that our students were tested on was measurement and data. Measurement and data. Now, if you think about measurement and data, you think about it from the perspective of math. A math class is not the only area, only opportunity for a student to focus on measurement and data. They're also going to get that in science. So very intentional about ensuring that these learning standards that we know are going to show up again for our students, that we're applying the rigor across multiple content areas. We're doing the same thing with ELA and social studies, because that is, again, the place where those additional standards are going to show up for our students. So we're being very intentional about it. Again, we want our results to be higher, and we know we want to see that exponential growth. Another area to just point out, if we look at our performance in our prior years, We saw gains across grade levels, but it was very sporadic. Meaning you might have saw some gains in grade 3, and then you got down to grade 7 and you saw some gains, but in between you didn't show any progress. We look at each one of our grade levels, with the exception of grade 9, as I pointed out earlier, we show consistent growth in our proficiency rates across each one of those grade levels. And what that says to me is that our intentionality and the work that we've done during the course of the last 2 school years, it is starting to pay off, and we're starting to see the gains consistently. We have a consultant who's worked with us. Many of the committee members had the opportunity to interact with her as she provided a snapshot of our school performance report cards that we've created as a result of our NJSLA results. We talked about some of the targeted interventions that we're putting in place. I am just excited that we have Dr. Tina Powell continuing to work with us for another school year and to help us bring together a lot of these programs and initiatives. We've revamped our instructional coaching framework. We fine-tuned our intervention programs for our students who need Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports. We've realigned our curriculum maps again, and she's also helped support us with the development of those standardized lesson plans for grades 3 and 7, and I'm excited about what this current school year brings. So again, I will take any questions that commissioners have at this time.
Commissioner Vice President Webb had a question, and then we'll go to the next commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Hassan, for your thorough presentation. You said that you plan on to front end some other items to, I guess, make up for the third assessment that we didn't do last year. Does that include that third assessment as well?
Yeah, so the third assessment, it has been scheduled, and now I'm more than happy to share as a follow-up with the board our assessment calendar for the current school year. Mm-hmm. So we do have those 3 assessments that are in place. They will take place in the following months: November, February, and April. And that aligns with the performance cycles and the timeline for me to report out on our progress to the board. So what that means is, as we close out the November cycle, performance cycle, we'll have assessment data for me to be able to provide to the board at that checkpoint. You'll also receive it in February or shortly thereafter, and then again in April. And at that time, we should have a very good indication of how our students are going to pair up. I would also add, to give a further example of what I mean by front-loading, now that we have our data from NJSLA and we know we were able to backwards map to show exactly what those standards were that our students were introduced to, we know that across our academic enrichment programs, measurement and data, that has to be a part of every math enrichment program that we provide. So if a student is showing up for after-school program for math, it has to have measurement and data in it. And we want to be that specific, not allowing for any variations or deviation from the need that our students have for measurement and data as one of those focal areas. And we should see that across our STEM program. We should see it across our 21st century learning programs, school-based youth programs, and any standoff program that a principal of a school wants to run as an after-school program. We will be very intentional about ensuring that that takes place.
Okay. One other question. I don't believe I heard the rationale, but can you speak to why there was a potential dip in the percentages between school year 2022 and 2023?
2022 and 23?
Yeah, in ELA proficiency, 5-year comparison.
Yeah.
Page 16.
Go to that for you.
And so I believe grade 5 is where we saw some dips, but it looks like it's across other grade levels as well.
So grade 16, I'm sorry, 16. So from the 22 through the 23 school year, what are you talking about
well, grade 5,
ELA?
it looks like there was some improvements from year 2021 to 2022. Then we had, looks like it went from 24% to 20% and then back up to 23. So, unless there was something that you
Yeah.
mentioned, was there like some rationale to
So I
the?
think what our data shows us from reports that we're having, this is not a shot, this is just me calling it what it is. We have comparison reports that show students' progress as they've progressed from one grade level to the next. And something we've noticed and we've seen in some of our data is that a student may have gone from a classroom where they had a very strong teacher and next year their teacher was weak. And that is one driver to how students can actually lose momentum and lose some of that progress. So, we have conversations about high quality instruction. It has to be the culture throughout the entire organization and not just in a few areas. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we've heard the conversation sometimes, even requests from parents. When a parent is raising their hand and they're saying to any of us, okay, I want my child to be in that school because I don't have the confidence that the quality of instruction is great over here in that school, that speaks to our inability to provide that across the board. And the point that I made earlier about the consistency is that now for our 2025 school year, if you look at this particular chart here, if you look down across the board, there was no dips in any grade level except grade 9, and I focused on that. When we look at every grade level, we show progress and improvement across every grade level year to year. And in prior years, when you look at this, it was very sporadic. If you saw improvements, it wasn't consistently across every grade level. You saw a few here, and you saw a few that declined. That speaks to our intentionality and the focus that we've made with our academic program and providing supports to our students. And again, we want to see these numbers, our student performance in these areas be a lot higher, and this exponential growth that we are looking for. Also, it also requires a shift in the mindset. If your teacher doesn't believe that your classroom can hit the proficiency target, you won't. If your principal doesn't believe you can hit the proficiency target, you won't. I'm happy that, we went through the struggles that we had last year. We have some members of our administrative team here. I think they can attest to it. When we rolled out those proficiency targets at the beginning of last school year, you would have thought we came and just dropped the bomb in the school district, right? The conversations were, we can't do that, we can't get there. But as we got toward the end of the school year, we started to see across the organization that team members said, you know what, I'm striving to get a 20% increase in my classroom. It's highly improbable, but I'm still pressing to make sure I'm showing up each and every day and pushing this to my students so my students believe in themselves, et cetera. Now that we've gone through a year, I think, of having that shift in mindset, I don't believe there's any stopping us in regards to our trajectory in this space, because we've broken the mold in that first year, and the team members know we're not changing our aggressiveness as it comes to those objectives, which means you either show up and show out, or you have to find yourself another opportunity somewhere else where you can go and coast and be comfortable. Now, the supports that are needed, we have to provide them. We have to make sure that we're providing professional development. We have to make sure that we have instructional coaches who are sound in their practices to go into the classrooms and support them. And we also have to make sure that all of our building leaders are instructional leaders, right? Gone are the days of where our principals can just focus on culture and climate in their schools and incident reports. You have to be an instructional leader, being in your classroom the vast majority of the day, not inspecting what you expect, but being in your classroom to be a coach so that your teachers can actually deliver high quality instruction. And I believe we have implemented the appropriate strategies to execute on that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's more so something I just want to shine some light on. I wonder, is there a connection between our economically disadvantaged subgroup and the drop for 9th grade? Because I wonder if there's a trend in that, being that once students get to high school, if they are economically disadvantaged, some of them may work, they may be housing insecure, they may be childcare needs. I wonder if there was some more supports for that subgroup, and if we analyzed, does that have something to do with this drop? A part of me feels like
It might be there.
it has to be something there, because if you, and then I compare it to Pinnacle. But Pinnacle, we know that's my alma mater. I'm very sensitive about that. For them to have no written interventions in this, it just said urgent need. But it's no specific intervention with that. And a lot of those students are economically disadvantaged. So for them to have did the numbers that they did to the point that they don't even have a score on the board, there has to be, and that's a school that goes from 9 to 12, there has to be
Yeah, so what that means
a
is.
connection there.
Yeah, so it does go to 9 and 12, but there's a rare instance where a student
Some
goes to
come there
Pinnacle.
as ninth grade.
Yeah,
I
like
understand that.
So that's why they don't have the results there. But to your point, we will take a look at that, because I don't want to say yes, and we haven't done our due diligence.
Is that
to
something that
decide.
the presenter, is that a part of her scope, since she's
So-
already on board?
It is, right?
Okay.
When we ask and we make the request, so we will speak to Dr. Powell about that, to have something queued up for our next committee meeting. But as it relates to the supports that you mentioned, we recognize and we understand some of those challenges, particularly for our students at the high school level, such as having to work, right? One of their responsibilities. So we're very intentional about introducing the flex period across our secondary to provide those students who may not have the additional time after school to take advantage of opportunities for tutoring, engagement in extracurricular activities, et cetera, during the course of the school day. And I think it's been very helpful for us. We have a number of resources that are available for our students, but to your point, not every student, I think you and I have talked about it, and every student is walking into the classroom or to the school building wearing their situation on the front of their shirt.
Yeah, that's why I think the monitoring the data of who they are, like internally, needs to create that connection, because they may not walk in wearing it, but we know, because we could tell by their lunch application, so to speak.
Yeah, so my inclination says you're probably right, because that's almost 80% of the student population, so it's
I like
kind of
that.
hard to not, right, where almost the entire school district is quote-unquote economically disadvantaged. So
Thank you.
we'll follow up on that. Yes.
Commissioner Andrews, go ahead.
Yes. So, yes. Right now, we've done two things. Very intentional starting these processes at the lower levels. I think for scheduling purposes, sometimes this has been a little easier or simpler for us. This school year, we've rolled out inclusive class rostering. Our class rosters, they're all presented in a way that allows for there to be a diverse group of students in every classroom environment in K-5. So that means across a grade span, to the best of our ability, you're going to see equal breakdowns of male versus female students. You won't see heavy concentrations of multilingual learners in the classroom with no students who are English speaking in the classroom. You're also going to see, you won't see a heavy concentration in one classroom where all of the students are high performers, if you will, and then the teacher next door has a group of students who are all, below proficiency standards on the developing stage. We also took into account behavioral issues that have been reported among students. that was front-loaded into our student information system and used to roster all of our classrooms across the school district. And that is one of our actions that we've taken to ensure that we have inclusive classroom environments. And the second, our sheltered instruction, which provides the training or professional development teachers need to support all learners in their classroom environments. So yes, that's our goal, Mrs. Hembry, and we're working very hard each and every day to make sure we realize that goal of being a more inclusive school district and having inclusive learning environments.
Was this communicated to the parents?
The
This
roster,
concept, yeah.
yes, I believe that was shared with
How?
our parents. Know that I've also personally shared it. We had our town hall meeting, and there were communications that were also shared with this.
Commissioner Andrews?
Just want to point out, good job, very dense, a lot of information delivered. A couple of questions and comments, even a request. Can we continue to ask for you to further disaggregate the data for us?
Sure.
And I'm sure we can talk about exactly along the lines in that curriculum instruction meeting. But I think it'd be useful for us to see the breakdowns between male and female throughout the grade levels.
Okay.
As well as I continue to always say, because you pointed out something, students that have been with us for like a K through 12, as opposed to those that we kind of get at the last minute, because then that can give us a better idea what the system is doing, as opposed to when we're just, like somebody gets dropped in and you got a lot of work to do to try to get them caught up.
We
I
do
know
have
that's a
that
difficult ask because pulling that out is
Yeah, I think we do have that because that was something that, I believe you asked for that as a part of longitudinal data a few years ago. So we've already started to take a look at pulling out those students, and what the data shows us early off is that those students who actually come to us, grade K, et cetera, they actually end up having better outcomes. Our school district we have high mobility rates in our school community as well. You know, it's somewhere to the tune of 30%. And that's students moving from one part of the city to the next, or students just coming to us at various entry points. And again, the later it is in a student's educational experience, when we receive them, that's less time that we have to work with them. So we will pull that data together for the committee meeting.
Thank you. And then, because I think, again, to your point, I think it's good to show, because again, it shows what the system is doing as opposed to those. Again, what's been a challenge, not just for school districts like ours, but I think urban school districts across the country. The other question I want to ask about is, I think Commissioner Smith brought up a good point, and I wonder if there is two pieces with it, if it's even possible to further disaggregate the data along some economic indicators. For instance, particularly around the high school level, those students who may be working versus those students who, and we can talk about that economy and dive into what that should look like. But I think, again, to Mrs. Smith's point, there may be students who require more supports depending on what the economic outcome is, right? So I might not be able to get to a class for additional support if I got to go to work.
Yeah.
That's one of those major concerns of mine.
And Ms. Smith and I spoke about one indicator, but I think if we were able to put our heads together to talk about it in committee, because, all right, economically disadvantaged, that's a lunch application, right? Free and reduced lunch. But what's not included in the lunch application is whether or not your family consistently shows up at the Family Success Center to get food distributions, right? So we talked about that as being another layer to it. So that level of information, we do have that, and we can cross-reference, and I think also we're speaking to some of the other agencies that do food distributions. If they're tracking that information, that's something that we can cross-reference in our databases. And I think Ms. Smith brought up a great point. You know, if this student, if their family is showing up for the last 3 weeks, the data shows that this family, like, they might be that close to not making it next month, right? Which means there is another layer of support that's needed and another level of stress that comes with this student's life. Like, so we can explore that based on, you know, the information we have. And if there's another indicator we need to look at, as long as we have the data point and we can pull it, we will be able to track it and disaggregate the data in that manner.
Another, and again, a request is maybe to take a look at the demographic makeup of an average class per school. And I say that because I think that, again, gives us an idea of like what their struggle is, even helps to answer Mr. Webb's question, perhaps. It's going to be a long night. The question about what those, how multi-language learners are kind of structured inside of a class, right? So like if they're, to your point, you're saying that there's not too many, but like what does that look like as far as the teacher's makeup? How many students that they're kind of dealing with?
So for that, I think we can solve that easily by providing you with some samples of class rosters. We can pull a sample from every school, elementary school primarily with the inclusive rostering. And that way you can take a look at it and see how the numbers pair up.
And again, I think that's a great idea. I think if you do it in a pie chart, kind of keeps it anonymous. We don't have to know the names. But I also think it helps the public, because we see a lot of this stuff behind closed doors, but it helps the public understand some of the challenges that you're faced with. There's a couple of things, again, I just want to highlight. I think the idea of IEPs, of course, is important. One thing I pointed out before, I think in a district like ours, I know we cannot do special education IEPs for every student, but I do think there's a value in seeing how students, if not classified, are getting consistent services over the course of time, and even informing teachers as they go forward that these are the type of consistent practices that kind of help students regardless of classification.
So as personalized learning plans, we do spend a lot of time discussing the personalized learning plans and how to standardize that across the organization. So we're on the same page. And
I know you've talked about it before, just giving credit, to move away from that grades as a standard reference, a standards base. I think, again, we've talked about it before. I kind of heard you mention it as well, that when parents are seeing an 80% in English.
What does that really mean?
What does that mean, right? And I think even if, as we continue to say, we want to provide supports and outside help, it's extremely beneficial, high leverage, if the people who are providing the help know exactly where to target, right? As opposed to, all right, I know a student is struggling in English, but I'm providing it across a broad range, and they really only need the structure in a few places. And that could be the same thing that's said for math, too. Again, in my experience, I find that sometimes we'll try to recap and reteach it. We're teaching everything, and it's only like a small gap that the student's missing. And I think that could help us, again, as a school district, but also for when students are going home where their parents need to have an understanding of where is my child and how can I provide that assistance. And again, I just think when we use a report card that just says a number on it, it makes it really difficult to figure that part of it out.
Receive.
And the very last thing I'll say, I've always believed this is our rock and our hard place. I definitely want to avoid segregation, which I understand why you use the shelter in place and a number of other support mechanisms. But sometimes, my concern is that you'll have students who have content knowledge but not the language acquisition, and then students who don't have it all, right? Like, because to your point, they've just gotten there, so they're struggling with learning a language, and they don't have the knowledge. Now, at the younger grades, I think you can kind of work your way past that, but I worry about it in high school, because I can imagine being a student who's sitting in the class in my own native language. I have a decent understanding of physics, but I'm nervous about engaging in it because I'm still critical about how I'm using the language. Or I'm struggling, like every other word I kind of catch what the teacher's saying, there's parts I don't. And so I just wonder, in two places, are we providing, I know there's artificial intelligence, they have earbuds nowadays that help students kind of translate even for English, but I guess I'm concerned about students who are familiar with it, might be familiar with content, but because of a lack of language, in those classes, they may be missing parts of the material.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we haven't gotten to the point where we started to explore the additional use of accessories inside of the classroom environment. And a part of that is, while it may help in the classroom, I think the struggle that we have is also ensuring that we don't create a dependency for the student, because they won't be able to use those resources when they get tested. And that's very important. Like, so we have the conversation about, our bilingual programs as an example. When you come into the state of New Jersey, I believe you have 1 year to be able to take math in your native language. you have no opportunity to take the ELA component in your native language, right? So from the time you walk into the state and you're taking any of those assessments, you're required to take it in the English language. So the struggle is like, what's too much, what's too little focus of a focus on English language acquisition, particularly for, English, and supporting students as they are required to then go at the end of the school year to take this exam and be scored on it, based off of their ability to speak the English language. And the state doesn't care if you're a SIFE student who hasn't been in school for the last 3 or 4 years. Like, if you're here and you're enrolled, like, you just have to take it. And those are some of the nuances and challenges. So I understand the point that you made, and it's something that we have to, obviously be mindful of, as we think about any of our, future supports with our bilingual programs. I would also add, when we look at our data for the last 2 school years, the majority of the vacancies that we've had have been for bilingual teachers. So with a full-time bilingual program, both last school year and the school year before that, we have 15 vacancies for the entire school year. One of the points of conversation with the state is, what good is a bilingual program or any other program if you can't fully staff it? Right? So think about how many class sessions didn't have bilingual teachers in them over the course of 2 school years. You break that down, if we're thinking about block scheduling, that's 4 per day. If you're missing 15 teachers, that's 60 on just in one given day that aren't being covered by a bilingual teacher, which means maybe somebody might come in and cover doing an extra duty, or we have to get a substitute in that classroom. And we all know that that isn't the best option for us either. So I'm not saying that our program efforts have been horrible, but I think that we built a program over time that we didn't align it with the appropriate resources because we couldn't go out and hire bilingual teachers. Right now, if you are a bilingual teacher in the state of New Jersey, you can pretty much demand what you want. You can come to this school district today and say, you know what, school district X, they'll give me $120,000 and they can leave tomorrow, because it's such an in-demand position now because of the growing population of multilingual learners. The question that we were asked by the Department of Education, what do we believe could be done to help support the development or the growth of more bilingual teachers in the state of New Jersey? Our response, based on feedback from our teachers, is probably need to provide a differential in pay. Now, our teachers I've had teachers tell me in employee roundtables, I have a bilingual certification, but I didn't tell the district I had it for 3 years. Why did you do that? Because my job as a bilingual teacher is probably twice as difficult or challenging as a teacher in a general education setting, and we get paid the same amount of money. Now, we can't control as a district the differentials with that. That's something that's collectively bargained for, and I can tell you with 100% certainty, the unions won't agree to something like that. That causes division amongst the ranks. But it is something that we know to be a fact because we have teachers that reported that to us. What do you do with that information now? So we will follow up on all of the data requests that you provided and have those that you asked for and have those available for the next committee meeting.
I just want to say one more thing to it. Like, again, a lot of quantitative measurements. But I'll tell you, as I continue to say, I'm very much interested in the qualitative data. I think that comes from more of capturing student experience. Mm-hmm. Right? And so as I think to myself, just asking, because this just gives one side of it. And to your point, this is not all of education. Education is also about understanding what students know and then seeing them have that confidence. So I want to say and encourage, as I do year after year, that the district find the appropriate measurements to measure some of the qualitative things. Things that are important to me are students having opportunities to participate in activities where they get to show their learning, demonstrate it, whether I've seen the science fairs, the technology fairs, going on JAG trips, getting better measurements of how many students are having access to those things. Then even importantly as the confidence level, right? Because one thing that worries me about testing, sometimes students will receive a mark on a test and then think in their mind, to your point, that they're not prepared to go on. But the reality is what we know is that a test is not fully indicative of how well they'll do in a college setting. I think more so of the mindset and, that, again, that qualitative information. So I would just, again, encourage the district that at some point, again, I don't at any point anticipate that it come quickly, but that we find qualitative means and measures of identifying success for students. With that said,
Commissioner Gray?
Yes. So I just wanted to thank you for the very elaborate presentation. I always love when we present the numbers and really dive into how this is important for us and understanding student achievement. One of the things that I wanted to focus on a little bit is that I know we all have an immigrant story, right? But there is a credentialization process that I know the district was trying to work in order to improve it. How has it improved in order to make sure that that student who is coming from another country through some point of entry, and maybe we have diplomatic relations to the country that they had, that they migrated from, how are we working in order to make sure we get their transcripts to understand where they're at when they come to the district?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So I think you'll see on tonight's agenda, there's approval for 2 team members to provide supports with our translation services and supports. So we do it in a number of ways. We have staff members who are bilingual, who understand the language of other countries, etc. They are the lead, they interpret the transcripts, and they will reach out to the school districts from those sending countries to determine what the actual course is and what it aligns to on our course requirements. It can be a strenuous process. We considered outsourcing it initially, but the cost to do it, it just wouldn't be sustainable for us as an organization. So we've been doing that for the last few school years, and that's proved to be very helpful and beneficial for us. Through our audits in prior school years, we realized that there were some students who didn't receive credits for courses they should have, and it prompted them to be in our school district longer than they needed to be. So I'm proud to say that it is working for us now.
Perfect. And then the last thing I wanted to sort of address is that my colleague, fellow commissioner, she started to address sort of the problem about the economically disadvantaged folks, which, come from a working class background. So it's very important to me that we make sure we have the budget, right, and we have funding for that. So I'm just curious as to what is sort of S2 funding has ended, a bunch of other different funding measures that have ended on the federal level, and then we can anticipate rollbacks on the state level. So how are we going to prioritize our budget in order to make sure we're still prioritizing student achievement?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Well, I'll start by saying, I'll talk about scalability. So if you, inside of your packet, you also received this evening a list of the strategies and strategic actions that I'll be taking along with my administration. It's the other document that's in there. It should have been 2 inside of your folder. And you'll see at the last goal, which focuses on academic return on investment. That goal is to make sure that at least 80% of our programs yield a positive academic return on investment. And we've been utilizing this methodology for the last 2 school years to determine the effectiveness of programs. And what that means is the programs that are ultimately yielding the high return on investment, we have to scale those programs and make those programs more accessible for students across the school district. And the programs that don't, we have to go through a redesign process or talk about decommissioning or sunsetting those particular programs or initiatives. One thing is for sure, the consumer price index, that's going to continue to increase. Inflation is going to continue to increase and impact our pricing for goods and services, which means we have to be, we just have to be vigilant with every dollar and every dime, every penny that we spend on behalf of our school district. By leveraging that academic return on investment, also with lean and agile methodologies. So the information that I shared with the board today about realizing $540,000 in cost savings by collapsing classrooms or consolidating classrooms, that is a strategy, one that we will use to ensure that we are continuing to be lean and agile as an organization. But it can't just happen at one point during the school year, right? So that has to be a constant conversation across our organization so that everyone is playing their part with that. I would also add, as we close out the school year, these numbers are not official yet, but we'll have the official numbers after the audit is concluded. But early projections show that we have an estimated $4 million in surplus after closing out the 24-25 school year that will go into our reserve accounts. Now, this becomes very critical now as we talk about a funding strategy and we're building out the budget for next school year. We had some difficult conversations about the reserve funding, et cetera. And if we've been watching the news and just reading in the papers what's been happening to a lot of school districts in the state of New Jersey, I mean, it's tough out here. And I think, we made a difficult decision here as a school district, as a school community, but I think it is one that will prove to be beneficial and pay off for us in the long run. You think about some school districts that probably wouldn't have been on the radar. Nobody would probably thought that Montclair Public Schools would be dealing with a budget deficit, right, to the tune of double-digit millions. I don't think anybody thought those types of things would happen, but they have. And guess what? Plainfield Public Schools isn't in the news for that, right? So I think we should be proud of that, but also just understand that as we approach this budget season, following the budget calendar that's been approved by the board, that's very important. Mr. Cox and his team is already working on enrollment projections going into next school year, and we're already having conversations about removing waste from our budget. Ongoing conversation. If it's not something that's a necessity and is not aligned with the strategic priorities that the board has established, it is a no-go.
Any more questions? Caitlin?
All right. Thank you so much for the presentation. I just wanted to ask about the 9th grade. I know it's a hot spot because not only are kids entering from foreign countries, but also it's the jump from 8th grade to 9th grade. And I just wanted to ask if they were being taught foundational learning. Because I know math has been a hot spot where we have been declining in terms of scores. But I was just wondering if the math supplements that you've been providing the students, has it been foundational? Because math it's not subject by subject by subject. It builds on one another.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is for every student that has to be personalized. So when we are utilizing, I had some excitement in my voice earlier when I spoke about the adaptive assessment. The tools that we use in the school district are in fact adaptive. So you think about tools like iReady, right, which is one of the math tools we use for our students. That's adaptive. It's going to really build out a learning pathway for a student, but it's going to meet you where you are as an individual based on how you've responded, how you've been assessed, et cetera. So when a student hasn't developed the foundational skills and they've just been pushed on to the next grade, I think it's probably one of the worst things that we could do for the student. Because at some point in time, we're going to spiral back to that particular skill because the next thing that they have to master is built upon that foundational skill. So what we find ourselves doing is actually reaching back in some instances to provide students with that personalized support. So yes, we are doing it. It's personalized on the individual level, but we also know, based on what I shared earlier, we're talking about math. We know for a fact going into this testing cycle, measurement and data, that's absolutely there. That's absolutely a component. We can go back and provide a number of activities that will help a student go back and develop those skills for measurement and data, right? We're talking about just basic things like, you know what, go get your ruler, go get a tape measure, and let's go measure the width of a table. Now measure the length, now show me what the area is or the square. There's so many things that can be done that allows you to still kind of go and pull back to some of those basic experiences to help build on those foundational skills. So we're gonna make that happen, for sure.
And just one last question. Has peer tutoring has been introduced? Because I know that with the new flex, we're able to go to the teachers, but not all students feel comfortable going to their teachers because, like they say, they don't want to wear their problems on their chest. So have you kind of trained the teachers to say, hey, if you see X, Y, and Z students struggling, maybe you should convince them. I know at PAWS, us NHS students are partnering with the English teachers, saying, hey, we have these high, advanced kids doing really well in English. Maybe we can pair them with some ninth graders that just came in or lacking fundamental skills. And we've been doing that for a year now. And we've seen it. So is something like that, can something like that be implemented district-wide?
So yes, something like that can be implemented. Have we explored that? I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think we have as we think about the flex periods and how that's structured. We do want the flex periods, even though it has some structure to it, we have to kind of show up and select your courses. We did want that to grow and expand so that students can leverage their executive functioning to also organically build those kind of groups. But if you believe that it would be helpful for us to, from your perspective as a student, it would be helpful for us to be intentional and provide some structure around that to kind of push towards it, we have no problem trying that out to see what kind of results we get. I think that's a great suggestion. I see some nods from the folks in the back, so.
Thank you, Caitlin. Do we have any other questions from any commissioners? All right, Mr. Hassan, great presentation. Thank you very much. All right, and Caitlin, do you have a report for us this evening? Caitlin, do you have a report?
Since it's the beginning of school, there's not much to say. We had a college visit from Drew University and of course, fun day, the opening of the amphitheater. The Keene Scholars are back in, Drive, NHS, Upward Bound. Just everyone's just kind of getting into the groove of things.
Okay, thank you for that. That's a report. You guys are off to a great start. All right, so I will now entertain a motion to go into public comment.
Second.
It may have not been heard audibly, but that motion was properly made by Commissioner Andrews and seconded by Commissioner Smith. Let the board now go into public comment at this time. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion carried.
All
Need
right.
a second so I can just read the statement.
Okay.
At business meetings, privilege of the floor will be provided for 30 minutes for public comment prior to committee reports. Members of the public in attendance will have the opportunity to raise concerns during this period of the meeting. Members of the public may speak once for a maximum period of 3 minutes. This time is not transferable from one individual to another. Privilege of the floor is now open at 9:38.
Okay. Yes, you can come to the floor.
Okay. Check 1, 2. All right, thank you. President Wyatt, Superintendent Hassan, members of the executive leadership team, and members of the commission. My name is Lamar Maxon. I am the executive director of the Queen City Film Festival, and I'm here this evening to speak to all of you about our schedule of events that are coming up October 16th through the 19th. And we have a very exciting calendar. And as you all know, I've communicated with most of you here this evening about the event and what we're doing. You can refer to the email in terms of all of the exciting schedules that are going to be taking place over the next couple of days during that time period. The reason that I'm here this evening is really to plead to you all about our ability to pull this event off as a nonprofit. We really depend on community partners by in-kind support as well as financial support to make this event the shining star of Plainfield, New Jersey, my hometown. And so, with that being said, we have worked with the Board of Education and the public school district on many different initiatives over the years to increase not only the film industry and business, but also to encourage the students and young people to become involved. And again, we depend on your sort of partnership to make those roles happen. This year, one of our days is the final day. I think it's October 19th. It's a Sunday. As we've done in the past, we've scheduled the last day of our event to be at Plainfield High School, specifically because it is a work development day where we're promoting industry and career movement for young people as well as professionals within the industry. Over the years, we've had Oscar-winning directors and filmmakers come speak to the public about either their projects at large and or what it takes to become a filmmaker. On this particular day, scheduled for Plainfield High School, we have the former director of communications for Kamala Harris, a gentleman by the name of Jamal Simmons, who will be giving a keynote presentation on navigating media in New America. And it's terribly important that our students become aware and savvy of this information. As you all know, we've offered free entry to all public high school age students in Plainfield as a continued good faith offering and partnership between the Queen City Film and Television Workshop and the Plainfield Public School District. Unfortunately, during the application process, we received a potential bill
Mr. Maxon?
for, yes, sir?
That's your 3 minutes, sir.
Okay.
May I have a
Can I have
motion to
2
extend
minutes?
his time?
Second.
Thank you.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Smith and seconded by Commissioner Vice President Webb and Commissioners Embry to extend Mr. Maxon's time. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, have the same right? Motion carried.
Mr. Maxon, you may continue.
Thank you so much for that extension. During our application process on the Facilitron website, again, as a certified 501c3 nonprofit, we were given a potential bill of over $5,000 for the use of the high school on October 19th. And I'm here to plead the case that not only can we not afford this as a local nonprofit, but I'm here to ask all of you to reconsider those charges and possibly donate those services in kind to us as a longtime community partner of the Plainfield Public School District. We understand that you have expenses and you have other extenuating circumstances that might lead you to need to charge others. However, we are from the hometown. We are from here, and we are all about uplifting our youth. And so the only way that we can do that and continue to do what we're doing, bringing world-class talent and entertainment to this town, is to ask you all for this help. We're not asking you for any money. We're not asking you to give us anything, but what we are asking is for you to allow us to use that space on October 19th as a community partner and local nonprofit. I appreciate your time. And again, on behalf of my Director of Operations, Allison McWilliams, and the rest of our board, I thank you for taking the time to listen to me tonight. If you have any questions, you all should have my email address. I'm more than happy to respond or meet with you privately to answer your questions and concerns. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Maxon. So your fee waiver is on tonight's meeting agenda for the board. For my recommendation, I've recommended that for approval to the board. I just want to explain the process. Yeah. So for clarity, the dates, we have October 18th. Should it be October 18th and October 19th? Or it should just be October 19th?
Just Sunday, October 19th.
Okay, it should be October 19th. So when you get the invoice, when you register inside of Facilitron, the system will automatically generate that. You cannot have your fees waived. That goes for you or any other organization until it comes to the board and the board approves it. So you getting that waiver is just a formality, but the team knows on the back end, because you also checked off that box, that you're requesting a fee waiver, but it takes for us to then bring it to the board. I don't have the authority to unilaterally do that as the superintendent. I have to follow board policy, so that's why it's on the agenda tonight. And you know that you have the full support of our school district. You've been a great partner to us, always opening the doors, working with our students. We appreciate that. We want to make sure that we continue that partnership with you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Maxon. I just wanted to add to that because before Mr. Hassan, before we just said for him to clarify for you, because we knew it was on the agenda this evening, and I wanted to say thank you for all that you do for the community. Thank you for continuing to do this annual Queen City Film Festival and allowing our students to attend for free. And we would like for you to continue to create opportunities for our students to participate and engage with what you're doing in the community and what you're doing in film, because there is a large interest in it. So if there's expanded opportunities and ways of which our students can participate and engage, even with you doing this year after year, and then in between annual film festivals, we would like to make sure that that opportunity is still presented to us and that our students can take advantage of that. But yes, it's on the agenda for this evening.
Thank you so much. And just to respond to that, if I may, we have several Plainfield High School students who are still part of the Film Future Club, and they will be present during the course of the event, the 4 days, and we will be plugging them into opportunities that are moving into career development, and so that is our calling. That's what we continue to commit to for the Plainfield Public School District, and you can count on us to continue to do that as long as we're around.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else here in person? Oh, yeah, sure.
I usually don't ask questions. Matt, do you have volunteer opportunities for the students to help out with the festival? Are there volunteer opportunities for the students that they're aware of?
Yes, absolutely. We do have a volunteer portal. We do have a portal on our website for students to, or any individual to submit their interest in being a volunteer. I can get your contact information and send you that information directly if you'd like, or however.
And share it with the district so that we can share it on our platform for the students and families that we serve.
Absolutely, I'd be more than happy to do that.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, folks.
All right, do we have anybody else here in the public present in person that would like to come up for public comment? Nick, do we have anybody online? All right, you can cue them up because I don't see anybody else here in person.
Good evening, Laura Miranda Brown, Highland Avenue. Happy back to school year. I wanted to ask for some clarification on the data presented this evening. It looked to me, just by doing some simple addition, the cohort of 5th graders who were struggling in 2021 are the 2025 9th graders who continue to struggle in these tests. I highlight this because there was a lot of discussion about this cohort without any commentary from the district about what we were doing to specifically address that particular grade level's learning loss. I'd like to receive some response on this issue this evening, as oftentimes my public comment is unanswered, or worse, sanitized in the meeting minutes. For example, my comments last month with regard to the budget line items that were supposed to be approved on the Friday budget meeting, which were actually approved on the Saturday meeting, were truncated, which leads me to my next question regarding the budget. Knowing we're facing a financial cliff, and Superintendent Hassan mentioned how dire the financial straits are for many other communities in New Jersey, and appreciating that the board has previously heard the community's feedback on travel and discretionary spending, I honestly find it shocking that 25 people, including the entire board, are on the agenda tonight for the weekend getaway in Atlantic City. I've heard that this is a conference and that it is a requirement for all board members to attend the training sessions. And yet after 8 years of attending these meetings, I've never heard the board come back and give the public a presentation about what they had learned at this conference. Adding insult to injury, there's a sitting board member who is not running for re-election. Therefore, what sort of training does this individual need when she's leaving the board in a short 10 weeks later? Maybe 2 more meetings worth of board attendance? Anyway, to summarize, my questions have to do with addressing the learning loss for the 2021 fifth graders and explaining why 25 people have to go to Atlantic City for a cost of approximately $27,000. And lastly, I would ask the IT moderator not remove me as a panelist, as there's a lag when that happens and you cannot hear the speakers, and so those people who participate online lose any ability to hear what is happening in the room and what the responses are. Thank you.
Thank you. And so she's right. We don't normally go back and forth with the public. What was just displayed was a unique situation. Doesn't mean that we're not going to speak to exactly what you asked for, but there's a reason why we try to refrain from going back and forth with the public, because sometimes we have too many public speakers and not enough time to engage with every issue. And there are administrators that can speak directly to your concerns and directly to you and provide those answers. But Mr.
Madam
Cox,
Chair, respectfully, when people aren't in the room, you do go back and forth.
Excuse me, Ms. Brown. Excuse me, Ms. Brown. I'm trying to provide you with the answers that you asked for, and I would hate to cut you off. I'm sure you would hate that. So please don't cut me off as I'm trying to explain and have your questions answered. I would appreciate that. Mr. Cox, may you please speak to briefly and directly regarding why we do things the way that we do it, especially with regard to having the full board and administrators on this agenda briefly. And this would be the only time that we speak to this. Thank you.
Yes, Madam President. The district actually leveraged one of the opportunities that the New Jersey School Boards Association, in conjunction with the New Jersey Association of School Administrators, as well as New Jersey School Business Officials Organization, and took advantage of the early bird special that they had for districts where you could register 25 people for the same amount of money. As Ms. Brown spoke at this conference, school board members obtained their mandatory training opportunities. As elected school board officials, they are the only elected officials that have a mandatory training requirement. As such, we leverage this to ensure that all of our board members meet those necessary requirements. Additionally, we have multiple team members that have been selected from the various 3 organizations that partner to put on this workshop on an annual basis to present best practices, to not only be a professional development situation for other administrators across the state, but also to leverage those networking and team building opportunities to continually learn at this statewide conference.
And just for clarification, if there are commissioners or administrators who do not attend, does that affect our budget at that point?
So, Madam President, if out of an abundance of caution, we always register all board members, and then the applicable administrators or team members that would be attending, and at any time we get the approval on the front end, because it's a procedural thing that is required with the county. If those individuals do not attend, or personal things come up and they cannot attend, then we do not spend that money on them. The only caveat would be that the flat rate for registering 25 individuals from your district would remain the same.
Thank you very much. That is to the extent that we will answer those questions. Any other questions will be answered directly to you, Ms. Brown. May we have the next person queued up?
Good evening, everyone. Sarah Virgo. Just two quick things. I wanted to follow up on the status of the committee to consider renaming the school facilities. Just asking for an update on the status of that. And I also wanted to thank the student commissioner, Caitlin, for her comments and questions. I tuned in just before you asked the questions about the results and made your thoughtful suggestions, and I just want to commend you on job well done. Those were very insightful questions and fantastic suggestions, and I look forward to seeing the rest of your tenure as student commissioner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have the committee chair ensure that he gets in touch with you directly and communicate that. Okay, you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Johanna Azate. I'm at 1612 Maple Street. I just wanted to comment to see if there is a way to have the meeting start on time or to change the meeting times. I feel like this is an issue every single or almost every single Board of Education meeting, that's posted for 6 o'clock. Today was around 6:45 that it started. I want to be an active member of the community and participate and be able to observe it, but it's really difficult when I log on and it hasn't started. Or soon after, it does start, it goes into executive session. So I would request that if there's no quorum because people have not gotten there, whatever reason that the meeting is not starting on time, then maybe the start time should be changed so that we're not, waiting around for it to start. I also wanted to mention, I did appreciate Superintendent Hassan's presentation. I did have some concerns on some of the differences with the schools, specifically the slide where the NJSLA English Language Arts ESSA targets, the differences between the schools and their performance on whether they were proficient or they met or exceeded the proficiency standard. Specifically, Cook and Booker are about half a mile away, and Cook's performance was the best and Booker's was the worst. And I just don't know if that's something that could be explored further to explain how two schools who are about half a mile apart can be so different in their scores. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nick, do we have anybody else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
Make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Smith. The board now close public comment at this time. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for a question?
I do have a question. Can we answer the question as it relates to why Cook is a better performing school than Booker?
Well, Cook is a better performing school.
Carry the motion because the question technically didn't have anything to do with the motion.
Okay. Can I answer just a question relevant to closing public comment? All right, so, yeah, close public comment, sorry.
So there's no more questions on the motion. You've heard the motion. You're ready for, there's no more questions on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right?
So I just wanted to ask the question as it relates to Booker and Cook. I mean, I have my speculations based off classroom size, which is, I believe, is going to be a bigger issue as it relates to classroom size because we have more apartments in the region. But I would like to get an understanding from the superintendent as to why Cook School is a better performing school than Booker.
I believe it's a better performing school at this point in time because our redesign plan for Cook Reimagine worked.
All right. All right, I'll now entertain a motion for consent agenda.
Motion for consent agenda.
Right. I know there's some eagerness there, but I will go with the first individuals that spoke. It's been properly moved by Commissioner Andrews and then seconded by Commissioner Hembry, pardon me, Mrs. Hembry, that the board move the agenda as a consent agenda. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same. I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Dr. Harris. All opposed have the same right. Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
It is properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Andrews that the board now approve the consent agenda at this time. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question?
Yes.
There being none, I'll call the roll with the caveat that board members will be abstained from their personal reimbursements and their personal travel.
Check you out.
Trying to, Mrs. White. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Right. Commissioner Vice President Webb?
That's yes with a no for, I believe it's K7, number 3. Is that correct?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the only no or abstention other than your travel or reimbursement, Mr.?
Yes, sir.
All right. Commissioner Andrews? Everything else is a yes, sir? Commissioner Gray?
Travel reimbursement and conflict abstentions, and then a no to K7. I can't give the employee number.
Number 3.
Number
I
3.
got you. I just want to clarify, you said and conflicts and abstentions other than your personal travel or your personal reimbursement? Was there another abstention that I may not be, another conflict that I may not be aware of immediately?
No, I just.
Got you. I
Just said it.
just wanted to make sure, sir. Dr. Harris? Dr. Harris?
Abstain from K7.
You abstain?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Was that an abstention on K7
From
number 3?
K7 and yes to everything else.
Okay.
Yes. It's an abstention.
Receive, sir. Sorry about
And
the
yes to
delay.
everything else.
Miss Commissioner Hembry?
Yes, accept.
Is Commissioner Johnson still on the line? No. Okay. Commissioner Malone?
Yes for everything, and I'm a no for K7.
3.
K7 3.
Receive. Commissioner Smith?
Yes for everything, no for K7-3.
Commissioner President White?
That would be a no for K7-3, a recusal from K10-7 and K11-7.
I'm sorry, your reverb. The recusal was what?
K10, number 7. K11, number 7. And a yes for everything else.
So I want to read this back to you. Everything's a yes with the exception of K7 number 3 is a no. K10 number 7 and K11 number 7 are recusals for you?
Yes.
All right. Madam President, with the noted abstentions, recusals, and noes, all agenda items other than K7 number 3 pass.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Go ahead, Commissioner Andrews.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Andrews and seconded by Commissioner Hembry that the board now close this meeting in the public. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion carried. Meeting is adjourned at 10:03 p.m.
Recording stopped.